All right. I'd say let's dive in. Ladies and gentle defenders, welcome to today's main event, A View from the Attacker. My name is Daniel Brody. I am Senior Content Marketing Director at Illusive, and I will be today's ring announcer. Now, before we get ready to rumble, I wanted to get all the stuff the bigwigs told me to say out of the way first. So today's webinar will be accessible on demand at illusive.com for sharing with your friends and rewatching in slow-mo. And we'll email you a link after the main event, and that email will also include a link to the full unadulterated movie of Alissa Knight attempting to hack an environment protected by Illusive. So you can get a good sense of what nation-state hackers are most likely attempting to do on your own networks as we speak. Additionally, we would love to hear from our viewers during today's presentation. So if you have a question for the speakers, please feel free to send it along through the Q&A box on the Zoom player. You can also tweet us at our Twitter handle, @IllusiveNW. We'll answer as many questions as we can at the end of the session, and if we don't have time to get to yours, we'll make sure to follow up individually afterwards. So without any further ado, let's kick things off with some introductions. In the Illusive corner, two blue teamers extraordinaire. First up, hailing from the most vaccinated nation in the world and providing the same peace of mind for our own customers. It is Illusive Senior Director of Field Engineering and Customer Success and all-around cyber range ninja, Nir Greenberg. Nir, will you give us a wave? We also have Nir's partner in doing good deeds. I would never call him a partner in crime. That is what our adversaries are. It's Illusive DC-based engineer, Rick Tomlin. Say hello, Rick. Together, Nir and Rick manage the Illusive cyber range to show red teams all around the world what true cybersecurity looks like in an age of rapidly rising nation-state and ransomware attacks. Thank you for being with us today, guys. In the other corner, we have notorious reformed hacker, Alissa Valentina Knight. Now, this is no ordinary hacker we chose to go up against the Illusive Active Defense Suite. Alissa was once a black hat hacker. She was arrested as a teenager for attempting to hack the US government, but so obviously talented that she was recruited to do ethical hacking for corporate and government customers of all kinds, including the US intelligence community and the US Marine Corps at the Pentagon. Some of her most recent exploits involve hacking 30 different vulnerable banking and mobile health apps and APIs in the span of a single week apiece. And she also published the first book on hacking connected cars. I don't even have a connected car, and there's already a book on hacking them. So that's the future for you. Alissa, thank you for joining us today. So I'll paint the picture and let you take it from there. So Alissa filmed herself hacking an Illusive protected network. And we had Nir and Rick defending that network. And so now we're going to watch a movie of the hack, and they're both going to comment on, how Alissa was hacking and how Illusive blue teamers were able to detect everything. So Alissa, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you've all had your coffee. If not, I promise you we will wake you up. I'm going to be starting the video here. The video, of course, was pre-recorded of me hacking the cyber range. And this is we're going to fold in a little bit of excitement and fun here this morning. So Nir, Rick, and I will actually be doing a live reaction to the video. So you guys will be able to see us react to what's happening. Very similar to those reaction videos that you're all probably familiar with on YouTube. And in addition to that, if it gets annoying and you just want us to shut up so you can hear, we are going to pause the video whenever we make reactions, just so you can hear everything. And we will be sending out a copy, and when I say we, I mean Illusive. Illusive will be sending out a copy of both videos, the ones with the reactions in case it's so side-splitting funny you want to see it again. Or if you want to watch the original without the narration because you just want us to shut up, we'll send out the original video as well. So without further ado, let's get started. I was actually quite arrogant when I walked into this research project, expecting to be able to know the difference between decoy hosts, decoy credentials, and the real thing. I was pretty sure I could figure out how to identify and pivot to real machines. I really had no idea what I was going to be up against. I came from the HoneyNet days of running Gen 1, Gen 2 honeypots. I just assumed decoy technology was just lipstick on a pig. Same stuff, just different name, backed by VC money. That was funny. I don't care what side of the line you're on, Rick, in here, but that was funny. I love it. Love it. How many hackers do you know about venture capital? Anyway. Oh my God, was I wrong? I was wrong. But I'm big enough to admit it when I am wrong, though. I was definitely wrong in this case. For the last 20 years of my career, we've never seen as many new product categories in cybersecurity as we're seeing now. Honestly, I think it's probably gotten out of hand. I mean, security orchestration and response, NDR, EDR, XDR, breach and attack simulation. How does a CISO know what they actually need? That's the point of this research. I'm definitely a believer now. I wouldn't wish Illusive on my worst enemy. If a client that I was performing a penetration test for was running Illusive, I'd make them turn it off before the test started. You know, if you if you think I'm wrong, call my bluff. I dare you. You're about to see. You'll see. That was like the best intro to any video I've ever seen. All right, everyone, you're going to be my co-pilots in this exercise. Let's have some fun. In this video, you're going to see two screens. One is going to be my Metasploit system that's running in Microsoft Azure, that's also running Apache. The second screen you're going to see is the graphical user interface for my RDP session, where Illusive has given me credentials in their cyber range. Now, this is very true to what's happening in the wild. With the work at home workforce, a lot of organizations weren't prepared for that. So a lot of them spun up RDP servers for their employees to log into via RDP. Unfortunately, this created a massive attack surface for these ransomware as a service gangs and some of these other crime syndicates who are targeting these organizations using either successful brute force attacks or credential stuffing tools in order to gain a foothold on the network. You're going to then see me download some tools from my Metasploit host that's also running Apache in order to get my tools on the host, and also execute the Meterpreter binary that I created with MSF Venom. Most of my operations in this living off the land exercise and attempt to pivot around within the network is going to be from my Metasploit system in the Meterpreter Shell. So sit back, relax, grab that cup of joe. It's going to be a very exciting next hour. Okay, Knight.exe is the Meterpreter binary that I created with MSF Venom. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and run that when we're ready to go ahead and start up the Meterpreter shell to this victim host. But I'm not quite ready to do that yet. I'm going to grab a few more of my tools. I gotta say, I'm actually surprised that you guys saw this. And for your the audience, you guys will actually see some screens fly in from the Illusive side where you can actually see these commands I ran. So the interesting thing here is, keep me honest here, Rick, but you guys, I have to interact with the decoy in order for it to go off, right? So just typing Knight.exe and running that backdoor, you guys, that wasn't there, right?
Right, that didn't trigger the alert, but you know, subsequent interaction that did trigger alert, then we're able to see the forensics that shows us, you know, kind of what was behind that.
Got it. Okay. So I'm going to do the same wget request, but this time for everything.exe. This tool basically just scours the host and network looking for files for me to be able to do keyword searches on, like passwords or credit card numbers, social security numbers, that sort of thing. It's a very... For those of you who want to get a list of these tools that I'm using, I wanted to use contemporary tools that ransomware as a service gangs and other adversaries are using when they exploit a network. If you read my Ransomware Inc. paper, which is available from Illusive, I list out all these tools. So I wanted to use tools that adversaries are using today rather than, you know, something that no one's using, no one's ever heard of. Anyway, powerful tool. Now, it's not a hacker's tool per se. It is a system tool that was meant for you know, legitimate purposes, but is used by quite a few adversaries to find files containing sensitive information on a network. I'm going to go ahead and also grab a tool called Lasagna. Lasagna. All right, come on, Rick. Is it lasagna? Is it lasagna? I get so hungry every time.
I've heard
very
both.
Similar to Kiwi or Mimikatz. Basically, it grabs all of the passwords it can possibly find on a victim host. Someone from the audience, tell us, is it lasagna? That it finds are real Lasagne? What is it? It's driving me crazy.
Type it in the chat. We'll for sure
Yeah, let us know if you know the actual pronunciation.
Host, we're going to go ahead and start Metasploit on our Metasploit host. You can think of it as the command and control server or C2 server that our victim is going to do a reverse connection to. And we want to prep Metasploit for doing that by using its multi-handler. Now, before I start Metasploit, I always like to start it with PostgreSQL. And what that does is it basically ties Metasploit to the backend database and allows you to use what are called workspaces. And workspaces are basically just little mini containers where all of your loot or evidence from your engagement can be stored. It allows you to stay more organized. So,
and I do want to say to you audience out there, any of you are pen testers, even if you're not here to watch an adversary up against deception technology, this is a great video for post-exploitation. If you go out there and Google it, there isn't really much beyond Metasploit Unleashed on post-exploitation. So this is a great video if you want some post-exploitation tactics and techniques. Anyway, thought I'd throw that out there.
I have a workspace, for example, for every engagement, allowing me to organize that loot or organize those credentials and other files that I grabbed from the post modules in Metasploit into just that one container or workspace. So in order to do that, it's pretty simple. We want to, first of all, make sure we're not root. Of course, you never really want to run anything in Linux as root, especially if you're in the middle of a penetration test. So I'm going to go ahead and start PostgreSQL. And to do that, we're going to run sudo service PostgreSQL start.
I guess I could have cut that out.
And now we're going to go ahead and just type in MSF console.
All right, Nir, Rick, admit it. Were you guys scared you wouldn't see all this? Were there some tactics and techniques you thought you just wouldn't be able to see, or were you just as cocky as me?
You were number 140, Alissa. Talk about it later.
Workspace. All you do is type in workspace -a and then the name.
I was more curious what you were going to pull out of the bag of tricks.
Yeah, well, one thing that you guys won't see is PowerShell Empire. I thought you guys, I seriously didn't think you guys would see the PowerShell Empire stuff.
But Illusive workspace that I've created.
Forensics piece is pretty cool.
Switch to that. I'm just going to type in workspace Illusive.
Yeah, you guys have to check that out. It's actually
for those of you, if it's not obvious yet, even if you're not here to learn more about deception technology and what it's like for the adversary to be up against deception technology, this is also a great video for those of you wanting to find content on the post-exploitation steps in a Windows domain, going after the Active Directory server, living off the land, collecting and harvesting credentials, say from the SAM hive, and then ultimately trying to get domain admin through different tricks, like stealing tickets or passwords out of memory. So those of you who are interested in that part of a penetration test, keep watching. All right, so now that we're in our Illusive workspace, we can go ahead and get Metasploit ready to receive that connection from the victim. And we're just going to use the multi-handler for that. And if you don't remember the actual location of a module within Metasploit, just use the search command. So we're going to just say search for handler.
I do want to say here to all of you that I really did walk into this thinking the only reason they've never lost a red team event is because it wasn't me. I was pretty cocky when I walked into this.
And it automatically selected the shell reverse TCP for the payload. I like to use the Meterpreter Shell. We created this as a Meterpreter binary. Let's go ahead and make sure to use that. So we're going to say use, sorry. If you type info, it'll give you all the information on the module as well as show options. And that will tell you everything that you want to configure for that particular Metasploit module. So I'm going to go ahead and set the payload to Windows.
Don't set the payload to x86 if it's a 64-bit system.
x64, Meterpreter, reverse, TCP. Now I'm going to show options.
And seriously, if you guys and girls have any questions during this video, put it in the Q&A before you forget that question. We'll definitely answer anything you want.
Ifconfig, and you can get your
or at least I will.
Now, in this case, this is going to be the non-routable IP, not the static IP, but the 10net IP that you see here on ETH0. So I'm going to set lhost 10.0.24.
And for those of you behind NAT, I actually explain how to set a route, a static route, to be able to pivot around within the remote network. So it's actually pretty cool.
Venom, so we're just going to go ahead and type in run. That's all you do. And all it's going to do is just start this listener on port 4444. All right, we have a reverse.
There you go. You see, this is a screenshot from Illusive
and start
of me running night.exe.
So we're going to type in get system.
Yeah. We can clearly see that it was downloaded as well as that it was executed.
Yeah, you see it in the MFT information. We were able to grab, so you see the change on the disk.
Yeah, there was a point where I think it was what, like 3 days, guys, where you didn't see any activity, and I had them scared because they thought, oh my God, we're not seeing anything. But it turns out that I actually just got busy and then came back to it three days later.
Oh, it looks like we were able to get system via technique 1, which is a named pipe impersonation. Okay, now that we have a shell on the host, we're going to go ahead and run a few commands at the command prompt. First of all, let's find out what member of the group, what group member we're a member of. It looks like we are a member of the administrators group, which is great. So we'll have full control over this local host. We'll find out our privileges. It looks like we pretty much have all of them as a local administrator. And we can go ahead and begin querying actual users. In this case, we can query ourselves in the domain. Tells us the group memberships that we have. So it doesn't look like we're a member of the domain admin group. We're going to go ahead and find out who is the domain administrator, or what are the domain admin accounts in this domain. And there's a simple command we can run at the command prompt in order to find that out. This is something that adversaries will do once they establish a beachhead on the network. They'll attempt to try and find out who are the domain admins. So when we find that domain admin username and password in cache or memory, either from the SAM hive or something else, we know we'll have domain admin once we switch to that user. So let's go ahead and attempt to do that.
Okay, I have to ask you guys, was this a real domain admin? You guys have to tell me. I was laying in bed staring at the ceiling all night, wondering, was Dan a freaking domain admin? You guys gotta fess up, man. Fess up. Was it real?
Domain.
What's that?
It's a real domain.
But is it a real domain admin? Is Dan the freaking domain admin, Rick? Answer the question.
It is a real domain admin, but it can be a deception, and that's the whole point. I mean, your tools can tell you this is the legit one, but it's actually a deception.
And this is where the deception comes in, where you can sprinkle in domain admins that are not real. That I, as the adversary, think Dan is a real domain admin.
Take it to the next level and create an entity in LinkedIn.
Yeah. So we want to go ahead and look for the password for Dan. So let's go ahead and exit out of here. So there's different commands that are built into Meterpreter.
You guys can see me like trying to get the clear command correct.
Techniques like dumping the SAM hive.
I should have left that screenshot out.
We're just going to say hash dump. And hopefully we can find some passwords that don't need to be actually decrypted. In this case, it doesn't look like it. So, but I still want to grab these. I'm going to piece these into my notes. For those of you penetration testers out there, keep notes. That's the best advice I can give you. Have a notebook open. You want to take notes as you go so you don't forget things that you find. These are all breadcrumbs in our overall kill chain. Want to keep going, logging, taking notes as you go.
So this is an interesting one, Alissa, because the information you gather also fake information throughout the process. So your story is basically off. than reality, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what the most, for our audience members out there, I think that's what the most frustrating thing for me was eventually got to a point where I didn't know what the hell was real. You know, what's real, what's fake, what's not. I didn't even trust myself or my tools by then. And you'll see that frustration come out along with some 4-letter words. But yeah, this is very raw. Mature audiences only. Yeah, you'll see this. But good point.
So what I'm going to do is there's a great module
Mimikatz
or plugin within.
I guess they've renamed it to Kiwi. I will forever call it Mimikatz. I will never call it Kiwi.
If you want to know what commands
you
can use with Kiwi, simply
it's like Kleenex, right? Like,
and you can see all
people are still 10 years from now.
It can list
people are still going to call it Mimikatz.
It can even allow
Doesn't
you
matter.
to use a Kerberos ticket. So if there's a Kerberos ticket in here for Dan, and let's go ahead and write our notes in here that the domain administrator.
And for those of you in the audience who are pen testers, please definitely feel free to add some comments, even if it's not a question, on what you think I should have also tried. One thing you will not see in the videos, I did try Bloodhound for those of you Active Directory hackers out there. And I believe they did catch that as well. And PowerShell Empire, but I cut it out of the video because it was just too long.
Dan in here, unfortunately. I see John, Jordan, Lauren, Lisa, Sarah. Looks like we've got some NTLM hashes, which is great.
I was so excited. Like, whoa, real accounts.
MSV.
I'm seeing stuff. It's true. It's just because they didn't have me. They didn't go up against me.
So we can do a little bit of pass the hash later.
Those sounds
Incognito is another great module or extension for Meterpreter that I like to use as well. So if we type in here, you can see the commands that Incognito supports. You can attempt to add user to the global group with all tokens, local group, attempt to add user with all tokens. You can impersonate tokens. So let's go ahead and list tokens and see if we can find one. Let's do it by group name.
I was sure I was going to find Dan in here, Rick. I was sure of it.
All right, it looks like
at some point I actually flipped off my monitor. I don't know if we caught that in the video, but I actually gave the middle finger to my poor computer.
That doesn't look like it really gave us anything. So far, don't really have much. All right, so as you recall, we downloaded some tools to the machine that will allow us to list all credentials on the host as well using Lazane, as well as everything.exe. So let's go ahead and play around with those tools. Doesn't look like we really have anything.
For those of you who are saying that you can't really see my screen video, I apologize. This was again pre-recorded, and it's probably the quality is probably being brought down by Zoom. Both of these videos are going to be sent out to all of you. If you can't see the terminal, so I apologize.
And see what Lazane gives us.
But you will see the full screenshots.
So here's the syntax for Lazane
later.
Also from the forensics portion.
Yeah, it was really tough to kind of fit everything in the same real estate. So.
Yeah.
All right.
So here you see I'm starting to get pissed off.
Doesn't have any FileZilla passwords. Looks like it found something using Credman. URL EP0354 for Tim with this password.
Hey Cedric, this was definitely all I can grab. This was everything. There were no rules.
Passwords.
So let's just go after everything.
Let's check out what EP0354 is. Oh.
Basically, Cedric, my attempt was to try and break out of the synthetic environment and get to real hosts and real credentials. For those of you who are trying to figure out what that was another screenshot from Elusive about where I was trying to actually pivot to those hosts. If you guys can see that in the network neighborhood, guys and girls.
Here as well. Interesting. Doesn't look like it can connect, but it's a real host according to this.
I'm starting to get pissed off.
All right, let's try EP0354. So it looks like there's cached credentials for this particular machine for user Tim. So let's try and connect to it. See if we can get anywhere.
Don't those look real, everyone? Come on.
Looks like we can't connect to that host either.
We
have cache credentials for it. Again, this could be another fake machine, synthetic host that was planted there by Illusive. This is definitely starting to become irritating. All right, let's see.
Hey, Anonymous, the question regarding what would I have done differently if I knew that they were using Illusive. I actually did know Illusive was in. The mission objective of this was to break out of the deception, only interact with real usernames and credentials.
Looks like we can connect to.
Only interact with real files, but I failed on one runway.
All right, looks like we have some files here in the finance share. See, now I'm worried, thinking, okay, are these real files? Like, are these more fake breadcrumbs for them to catch me? It's just really unnerving. You know, it's like, why is this open? I didn't even have to authenticate. It's just really nerve-wracking. You just don't know what's real. You don't know what's fake, what's real. I feel like I'm in a movie.
It's the Matrix, man.
I'm in the Matrix. What's happening? CI SharePoint Co. This is really just wacky. All right, it looks like interesting. Looks like we have some more stuff.
One thing I do want to say, all of you, is if some of you joined late, by the way, thank you for joining us today. I've never seen so many people in a freaking webinar. We have a lot of attendees. This is awesome. But one of the things that I do want to say is, if you missed the beginning, I did talk about thinking that deception technology was like lipstick on a pig with VC money. You know, I'm from the old HoneyNet days with Lance Spitzner, and you know the honeypots. Yeah, I thought this was like a honeypot, right? Like avoid the honeypot. Go after the real systems. I was wrong, as you can see.
Definitely not a honeypot.
See something here for Dan. Those are MS Cache.
I was so excited here. I'm like, Dan's MS Cache password.
Let's make sure we capture that.
But again, is Dan even real?
So we do see.
Is Dan even real?
Something here. London 123 bang is the password for our account. So looks like that was an LSA Secrets. FileZilla. Who uses FileZilla anymore?
Come on, Rick. You know you do. You know you use FileZilla, man.
All right. So we have some MS Cache passwords for John, Dan, Tim, and Barack.
My Windows NT box.
I don't see those decrypted.
Were those real too? Were those all fake?
Except that one password.
Which one?
I'm gonna hook you guys up to a lie detector.
All right. So
we want the truth, man.
Again,
we want the truth.
I mean, we can connect to that. Connect to a couple of these, but I just don't know what's real.
Come on, you guys are pretty quiet. There's hundreds of people here. Someone's got to have some more comments and questions.
Let's try everything.exe.
I was actually surprised you guys caught this too.
Have anything? I mean, there's one.
This one was a good one. It was with
I was surprised.
Yeah, the screenshot and also the content inside and the tool. That was
yeah, that pissed me off because I was like, oh my god, finance files. This is it. I found the crown jewels.
Maybe the same
freaking decoys. Freaking decoys. Audience, those were fake. Those were decoys. Those were breadcrumbs.
In his downloads folder.
I was excited about this password file. There you guys go. There you go, guys. That's the view from Illusive's console.
Yeah.
That is wicked, man.
It's one technique from that
and it looks like a
deception family.
So one of the things that I want to do is I want to find what the name of the domain controller is. GP result /Z will tell us give us information on the group policy. So it looks like CIS SRV1 is actually the name of the domain controller.
What you guys missed there was me rocking out some PowerShell Empire as well. And they did capture that.
So we know that CIS SRV1 is a machine that we want to attempt to
domain controller
eventually either get to or possibly even other machines if we can try and find as we continue to hunt for the password for Dan. So here getnet forest is another command we can run in PowerShell to get more information on the actual domain. So let's go ahead and background this Meterpreter session and use some of our other post modules that are available to us in Metasploit.
Good question, Cedric. Near Rick, you guys know really how many decoy us, like versus real machines
as actual
there were
modules within
in the cyber range?
All right, let's go ahead and
roughly
continue.
Yeah, boss. I think there were roughly, when it was all said and done, including the infrastructure like the domain controller and our servers, there were 9 real servers or 10 real servers and about 20 deceptions total.
Oh,
yeah,
or 18 deceptions.
So twice the number of real machines.
Yeah.
Okay, come on. You gotta like prop up my ego here. Did I hit anything that was real?
Yeah, you had
anything real.
You had some, and I think that this was great to see. Also that the successes, but I think that also for just to add on what Rick was saying, those 20 or 30 deceptions that you have there in the environment, to the attacker that can look like hundreds, that can look like thousands of deceptions, because you have different types. So you can look for like certain places and you can see different types of deceptions there, and they will look like legit to you. So it really depends on the number of deceptions you create and then where we place them automatically as part of the deployment.
And also the combination, right? So you may have had, one piece, right? You may have had a real endpoint and maybe even real credentials. Like later on, I know you're using John as an example, which is the credential you were given, right? So we know it's real. And you're hitting different shares looking at SMB. Not everything, there's multiple pieces in that puzzle that all have to be real in order for you to succeed, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and Elad, sorry if I'm messing up your name, Elad Shlomo. Yes, I believe Sysval was hit by Lizane as one of the cache passwords
within Metasploit. So let's first list the network interfaces on this machine. It looks like we have a 10.1.2.24 interface and its local loopback. All right, let's go ahead and run ARP scanner against the network using this 10.1.2.0 interface.
And this is where I lit up like a Christmas tree right now.
That within the Meterpreter Shell. So it looks like it's finding some other machines on the network, which is great.
I was like,
but this is part of the frustration, right? I mean, this is part of you're losing your mind, right?
Looks like a lot of them actually have the same MAC address, which is interesting.
It starts to get NC-17 here, everybody.
Come on, Rick. Come on, Rick.
Yeah, this was my bad. I took a shortcut and got caught.
A lot of these machines
Look at that! Look at that, everyone!
Totally.
Do you guys?
Totally
what do you see wrong in this screenshot? For those of you who can't see the text, there's a lot of the same MAC address. Rick was being lazy. Rick was being lazy.
Saw me on that one.
You can create unique MAC addresses, everybody. I believe, correct here.
IP addresses are
yeah, I mean, you can do the tweak on our interaction server. So it is possible to play with your head a little bit more.
Yeah. And for those of you who are complaining about not being able to see my terminal screen, again, we will be publishing both versions of the video. So you guys will be able to see that later.
All right, it looks like we're finding quite a few hosts internally now, and our route is working. So we're able to reach these other internal IPs. Without that auto route set, we wouldn't have been able to reach them. So here we can go ahead and attempt to reach the domain controller using, for example, psexec. Now, the neat thing within Metasploit you'll find is a command called hosts, and what this will do is it will list all of the hosts within your database within your workspace that it was able to find. So it looks like we have an IP address for CISSRv1, which is the domain controller for CISD, and went ahead and informed us of that. So let's go ahead and attempt to authenticate with it using psexec. And it looks like Meterpreter is our default, which is great. All right, looks like we have an access denied.
And this is when I start losing my losing my shit. That's amazing. I mean, you can see clearly up there where it was working, and all of a sudden PS exec is failing, like WTF.
Meanwhile, our console is starting to light up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know how, I mean, how did you guys pull that off? How does your technology do that? Like, so the SMB authentication successfully completes with SMB exec, but PS exec, like when you actually try and do the interactive login, it fails? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it
so
depends
clearly
on
we've got
what
nothing
you fall
but
on.
synthetic credentials
Server,
here
deceptive
collected
server,
so
or
far.
deceptive connection, or deceptive user.
The
It
inability
really
to connect
depends on
anything.
how you try to interact.
Got it.
All right, finally we're getting somewhere. Looks like we can authenticate to quite a few hosts using the credentials that we have now. So let's go ahead and bounce around these machines and see if we can find the password for another user to possibly get to another machine that might have Dan's credentials.
For those of you who want to learn how to pivot around within a remote network to hit internal IPs when you're on the internet, this is a great part of the video that you might want to watch. And I'll explain in the video comments, but there's a command you can run that basically sets up a hop point from your beachhead, allowing you to target internal IPs.
Hoping these are real hosts. Never know with Illusive. Let's go ahead and check one of these IPs that we were able to successfully authenticate with our credentials using SMB login.
I think that auto-ret command was already run.
10126.
I did it before the scan. For those of you who want the actual command, I'll put it in the video comments.
Off to the races. We are one step closer. Let's check the username and password we have set. It's John set SMB pass. All right, 10126. Username John, password London123. 10126.
Salish, yeah. I was thinking that
password.
So netlogin, I thought we tried that, right? Near was what in network neighborhood?
Yeah, yeah, you did.
Fuck you. How can this not be working? SMB login told us that.
I thought this was the bleeped out version of the video. I apologize, everybody, if you have kids in the room.
What the
Oh, okay. I beeped it, but not the other F bomb. Oops.
11210.
Sorry about that.
All right. Well, at least that thing's real. But SMB login was telling us that this was successful. Let's try 10.1.2.13. So SMB login tells us we can connect. It gives us success results, but clearly we're not getting anywhere. All right, so that's it. I give up. All right, so clearly in any penetration test, you want to be low and slow. You want to be as quiet as possible. You don't want to be setting off alarm bells. It looks like everything we've been communicating with in this exercise are synthetic credentials, synthetic hosts. SMB login, these post-exploitation modules in Metasploit are telling us these things are working. They clearly aren't. These are tools I could trust before. I can't apparently trust them now. This is a shit show. So unfortunately, we did make a lot of noise in this effort. I'm anxious to see what Illusive Network saw on its dashboard and the level of detail, possibly even down to the keystrokes, on what was going on here. This just sucks. As an adversary would have moved on to the next victim, I would at this point just be out. I'd just be exit stage left. This is a total shit show. So we really can't trust any of the results from our notes. We can't even at this point trust Metasploit on what hosts we were able to successfully authenticate with. It did look like we were able to get some credentials, but again, these didn't work when we attempted to log back into these machines. It looks like we weren't able to reach any of these things at all. Yeah.
You kept trying there, Alissa. I know
yeah.
I know
you did. For effort, right?
I walk away from this with my mind definitely changed. I think walking into this, I felt like, you know, deception technology is more of a nice to have. Didn't really need to be a critical budget line item for me as a CISO, but definitely at this point, I would make this a mandatory purchase for me at least, in making sure that my network detection and response and endpoint detection and response were augmented by this. I can't imagine anything interacting with my synthetic environment like synthetic credentials and synthetic hosts unless it was illegitimate activity, unless it was malicious activity. An adversary attempting to pivot around within the network and live off the land. This was just frustrating for me. I never want to go through this again. So hopefully on my future penetration test, my clients are not using elusive networks. This is extremely cool. I just at this point near the end couldn't really trust anything that my tools were telling me. So good guys 1, bad girl 0.
You lose.
All right. That was fun.
Yeah, I see that we have a few notes, a few comments or questions that we can respond to. Daniel, if you don't mind, I can pick some, and then we can have a small chat because we can add some.
Yeah, let's make it interactive for sure.
Yeah, and there's still time to ask some questions too. So if you haven't been able to ask a question yet, or you weren't sure, you know, before, please put the questions into the question box, and we'll take a few right now. But yeah, Nir, if you want to pick some that are particularly enticing to you, go right ahead.
Sure, I see like 2. So I'll start with the first one. So did you have a specific mission to fulfill, Alissa, or was this exercise more about grab all you can? So there was a flag in this environment that Alissa was supposed to catch. That was like a credit card numbers list. So that was the main goal for Alissa to capture. So this is for the first question that we had in the chat. The second one that I saw, which all of them.
You might want to grab the Mac question from Tobias.
I will. That's an interesting one. So I'll get there in a second. I'm going through the question. So when Illusive is gathering the forensics on tool used, is because Alissa is in a honeypot. So this is a great question in my opinion, and also it duct tapes to what Alissa was saying in the beginning. The whole concept of honeypot, the way at least we saw it before we built this product, was that the honeypot in the end of the day is a research tool. It's like if someone goes in, you'll grab what you have, and then you can gather some intelligence off of that. Now, if you want to detect malicious activities, you gotta work where the attacker is operating, which is on the endpoints, Windows, Linux, or Mac. It doesn't matter. And then you can feed them with fake information. Now, Alissa was referring to credentials as an example, but we saw also passwords that we can plant in different files and in different forms and fashion. So this is exactly the type of interaction that we want to have with the attacker. And therefore, the honeypot portion is just the interaction. So once Alissa made the wrong decision, she interacted with the interaction server. And that can be a honeypot, that can be a trap server, that can be an emulation. It depends on what you decide to implement in your organization. Not sure, Alissa, if you want to add anything else, or Rick.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that and it's really important to understand here is, I come from the old, like I said, HoneyNet days with Lance Spitzner, Gen 1, Gen 2 honeypots. For those of you who go back that far and remember Scan of the Month challenges and stuff like that, a traditional honeypot, you're waiting for the adversary to find your honeypot, interact with it. It's just kind of on its own. Whereas deception technology actually merges the two worlds of the synthetic world and the real world together. If that's an accurate statement, that's how I perceive it. So it gets to a point where, as the adversary, I didn't even know what was real anymore, right? I didn't even know. I couldn't even trust my own tools. I couldn't even trust my own decision making. And I had spent hours trying to get around, only to find out that I hadn't actually moved anywhere. And to address your question more directly, Anonymous, is, you need to understand that I didn't have a foothold on a honeypot. I actually had a foothold on a real system. So this would be very indicative of a real world compromise where someone has a beachhead maybe on someone's laptop or, a server, and you're literally with Illusive, you're sprinkling these decoys all around the place, fake credentials and memory. You guys saw that Sam Hive dump, guys and gals, sorry. And the other systems on the network. So it was for me a very startling, experience, because I think all of you can agree that we're living in a very exciting time right now in cybersecurity. Over the last 20 years, we've never seen more new product categories than we see now: breach and attack simulation, security orchestration, automation response, now deception. And honestly, a lot of those, in my opinion, are nice to haves. I can't imagine not having this in the network, and they're not paying me to say this. I'm an outside hacker. I'm not an employee of Illusive. I'm just an adversary in this perspective. So, there's definitely nice to haves and needs to have. Think about this. Would you get out of bed to investigate an alarm because logarithm or your SIM, fill in any SIM here, or any NDR here, or any EDR here, is waking and telling you there's an alarm, right? Or what's the likelihood that that's a false positive versus being woken up because someone's interacting with a decoy host on your network? What false positive can you think of where an employee would legitimately be interacting with a decoy host or decoy credentials? I can't think of one. Whereas your NDR and EDR, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have those, because you should, but those types of detection technologies are prone to false positives. And one thing that I want to leave you with, and I want to make sure everyone takes away, is with those other technologies, you're detecting while harm is happening to your production environment. You're detecting while damage is being done. This is the first solution in 20 years that I've ever seen where you've got a detection technology where no harm is being done to your production environment beyond that foothold. They're interacting with decoy credentials, decoy files, decoy hosts. The harm is being done to decoys. And I've never seen a detection technology do that. So sorry, Nir. That was a very long-winded answer.
Yeah. No. Rick, anything from your side on this one before we move on?
No, I think that's that's really the key is getting detecting that somebody has in a post-breach environment that they are on your network as soon as possible. Like Alissa said, before they get to the point where they're doing damage.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and this one would be quick. So yes, another anonymous attendee. So Alissa knew about Illusive in place. So we did a rundown with Alissa, and she know what deceptions we have and so on. But the way we craft the deceptions automatically from the system are blending in or sprinkling in fake information for Alissa to harvest, and therefore it doesn't matter if you know the deceptions are in place or not. So that's for this one, and for the MAC question. So as I understand, the MAC addresses of the trap server are all the same. What I don't understand is it possible to create unique MAC for every server deception, and then there is some example of how many NICs and how many deceptive servers and so on. So the recommendation, and every customer of ours will get best practices of how to set the deceptions in place. So it will be the balance between IPs and NICs, and IPs per NIC and deceptions per IP. So we basically give you the best practices, and also the product itself also suggest what is right and what is wrong. So you can choose the level of credibility you want to have, because some organizations want to be more accurate in terms of the deception than the other. So this is for the question about the MAC addresses.
Hey, Nir, I'm going to grab the next question. That's okay.
Before you go any further, can I just circle back to the question that Nir answered before about before the MAC addresses, about whether you knew the environment? Just want to clarify, just for everybody here. Alissa did not know anything about our cyber range before she walked into it. We did not preview it with her. She was not aware of any of this. We gave her an IP address or a host name for an RDP and a user ID and password for the beachhead, and that was it. So I just, we did not preview a lot of the deception stuff. She knew it was there, and she had some prior knowledge of the solution, but nothing about the range she walked into.
Yeah, I didn't know how big it was. I didn't know anything about operating systems, stuff like that. So
good clarification. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alissa, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take the next one. Is there any chance that an employee could mistakenly interact with the deceptions? That's from Anonymous. I think maybe if an employee were fat fingering an IP address that they were RDPing to, sure. But I mean, if you think about it, employees should only be connecting to either mapped drives on their system that IT sets up, or, if they are IT, they're gonna, they're gonna really know what host they're trying to connect to. I mean, I can't imagine decoy credentials being legitimately used, decoy files being mistakenly accessed. Maybe the files, but or decoy hosts that you're connecting to. And, so I guess the answer is maybe, but unlikely. It's easy to fat finger an IP. But, it would be really easy to quickly go in there and determine whether or not, because at that point, if they're connecting to a decoy host, what are they going to try, right? They're going to probably try decoy credentials, right? So your A plus B equals to something bad. Just a connection attempt may not be anything. You may want to still look at it. I would still look at it, but I would still be able to quickly eliminate whether or not it was nefarious or not. So good question.
Rick, you want to pick another one?
Yeah, let's see. Here's one. How do your admins know that an endpoint is legitimate from Illusive or something a bad actor has created on the network? So admins outside of our ecosystem generally are not seeing the deceptions in terms of, if they're interacting with them, they're also misbehaving. So there is an opportunity, if for doing, as an example, if you're doing deep forensics on an endpoint and you need to know what was planted on that endpoint, there is an ability to get that information from our console. But in terms of the general everyday activity, even from an admin, we don't want them to know, I think, is the simplest way, because admins can behave poorly too, and so this works extremely well for an insider, even an administrator who is behaving poorly, that can be tricked into going for information that they really should not be attempting to access.
Yeah, I'll grab this one from Matt. Hey, Alissa, always fun to watch you. Thank you. It's good to see you again, Matt. Thanks for joining us. I love deception technology. Awesome. Now I do too. Well, as an attacker, I don't. It's the greatest bang for your money. Awesome. However, could a patient invader monitor internal traffic to statistically determine which hosts are real or fake? Or do the virtual systems generate fake traffic? That's a phenomenal question, Matt. I don't know the answer to that question. Nir, Rick, do your decoy systems generate traffic to make it look more real?
Yeah, we have network deceptions as well.
Okay.
To some extent, I won't share everything in here, but if you are trying to sniff the network, you will face also network
packets. You'll see packets. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Great
Fun,
question, Matt.
Fun.
Hey, Alissa, I think a question came in before. People were a little bit curious about the tools. If you could just review the names of the tools you were using and if there's any sort of available place where those tools can be acquired.
Yeah, so yeah, great question. So again, if you want to, there's a list of the tools that I used in the Ransomware Inc. and Breaking Banks paper that I published for Illusive. It's on I think it's on your guys' website.
Yeah, it's available at illusive.com. Yes.
Yeah. And also, so just off the top of my head, I used a tool called everything.exe. And if you Google it, you can grab it. There's also a tool that ransomware gangs are using called RDP Brute. That's in there. I also used the jury is still out on how to frickin' pronounce this name, but we think it's Lazane. I like to call it lasagna, but if you Google Lazane, LAZAGNE.exe, that's a really cool password scraper out of memory on a compromised host. So sounds like you, whoever asked that question is a pen tester and looking for more post-exploitation tactics and techniques. But there's a full list of tools in that paper if you guys go take a look at it, and gals.
One other question. Oh yeah, go ahead, Rick.
How about, I just seen one here from Andreas. Basically, I assume a vulnerability scan of a network range would also hit deception servers. Can one whitelist the vulnerability scanners? So yeah, it's a great question, and you're absolutely correct. And they can, typically we whitelist either at the scanner. We tell the scanner not to scan things. We also have the ability to tell our system, if you are scanned, ignore it. So you've got a couple of different ways to approach that, depending on what you have access to and where you want to do that. I've actually also seen a couple of customers block that scan with their firewalls, so that the scanner can't see the deceptions for some reason.
Yeah, and we have also security teams that actually didn't whitelist the scanners as well, because they want to know when the scanners are coming, and they want to know how the IT is actually operating. So that's another use case. If you don't want to go ahead and whitelist that, you can use the severity also levels in the console and just consider that as low if you like.
Okay, Anonymous, if it's lasagna, why does it end in an E? It's so confusing. I think it's Lazane, but I agree. I think because I don't know, it just makes me hungry saying
like GIF versus GIF. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Daniel,
I think it's GIF.
And Daniel, do we take all those questions and answer offline
yes.
somehow, because we won't be able to to complete all of that.
Yeah, we appreciate all the interaction. There's a lot of I've never been on a webinar with so many freaking people. This is awesome, and a lot of great questions.
Well, it's not every day defenders get to interview an attacker about their methods, right? So I think we got time for maybe one more question. I saw a couple times here. Can Illusive integrate with an EDR to isolate the beachhead or compromise host to prevent further lateral movement?
Yeah, I did answer one of those questions. I saw, a specific question about Sentinel-1, but from our perspective, we do have some tight integrations with some of the EDRs, the leading ones. So once there is a deception triggered, you can isolate this computer from the network using your EDR. But we have customers that just chose to do it via the SIM. So automate that, get the alert to the SIM, and then via the SOAR create an automation to just isolate this with not an EDR. That could be done with other tools that can isolate computers from the network. So it is possible. Maybe not directly with this EDR or the other EDR, but you can definitely do that with an automation.
One great question I want to make sure we get answered here is another question from Anonymous. What are the, in my experience, what are the artifacts on systems that I like to find the most? and a pen tester get most excited about? One thing that I can tell you is, for those of you who've seen the pen test reports where someone's like, oh, I found this password written in a file on this user's workstation on that, and you're thinking, oh my God, how did they find that file? There was everything.exe is a great tool. If you're a pen tester, grab it and put it on the host that you might have a foothold on. It basically sprays the network looking for keyword searches, and it's the fastest scanner I've ever seen, and it will comb through files. And so the answer to your question is, whenever I find PII or PCI in a pen test, so I'll use everything.exe to look for credit card numbers, because like Visa will start out, I think it's 4128. So like I'll search for credit card numbers, and it's my favorite finding on a network, especially for companies that don't know they have PCI compliance requirements. So I think that would be the answer. And of course, anything that incognito finds. Like if I have local admin, but I don't have domain admin, and I'm using incognito, or I'm using Mimikatz, and I find a domain admin cached credential, obviously I get excited at that point, because I can ride free at that point. The pen test is over. So good question.
All right. Well, it looks like we covered most of the questions. As Nir said before, if there's one we didn't get to, we'll be reaching out to everybody on an individual basis to try and make sure we get that question answered for you. So yeah, we'll definitely be contacting you. So thanks to everybody for joining us today on the panel. Thank you, Nir. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Alissa. Really good time had by all.
I think the attacker won. I may not have gotten anywhere, but I think I beat both of them.
You rock, Lisa. You rock.
That's what the deceptions want you to think. Yeah.
By far.
I think the audience agrees. I clearly won this. I mean, I may not have gotten anywhere or gotten any real credentials or systems, but I think the audience agrees with me.
By far, it was the most fun exercise we ever did. I mean, Alissa, thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Nir. Thanks for this exercise. It was fun.
And thanks to everyone who attended today as well. Thanks for coming. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be emailing a copy of this session and also the original attack video, which will be in high definition afterwards as well. So look out for that in your inbox. And our series of webinars on the view from the attacker will continue on April 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time with How to Think Like a Cyber Attacker. It'll be a presentation by our field CTO, Wade Lance, and a red teaming veteran, John Sawyer. And they'll talk about how to test your current security approach by thinking more like your adversary. So you can find the registration link on the Illusive website at the Illusive events page, illusive.com/events. So
and
please
for those of you who don't know me, follow me on YouTube and LinkedIn and Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Please follow Alissa Knight everywhere you can.
I had to plug myself.
Thanks. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye all.